560 KPQ. We're talking with Nancy Tedeschi. She's the inventor of SnapItScrew.com, and she's a wealth of information about the frustration and success of invention. Thank you again for being here. People who are listening to the show know now that you had an idea. You got a provisionary patent that gives you a year to file your regular application and utility application for a patent, and now you have a prototype. You've gone through the process of a prototype and had a disappointment of a licensing agreement that didn't come to fruition. So now you're going to do it yourself. Tell us that part of your story.
Yeah, so now I decide that maybe I'm going to go to the optical industry for the opticians who fix glasses every day in this country, and how frustrating it was for them. So I said, well, I'm going to switch directions because I was disappointed, and they were the largest licensing agreement I could have got in this country. So I actually placed a tiny little ad in a trade show magazine for optical industry called Vision Monday, and it was just a couple of pictures of the screw that I had, and underneath it said, it was in their What's New section, and it said, Snap It, figures out a way to fix glasses quick, and had two pictures and my website and my phone number. And a couple of days later, I got a phone call from an optometrist out of New York City, and he goes, "Is that what I think it is?" And I said, "I don't know, what do you think it is?" He goes, "I don't know, do you have any of them? I'd like you to send them to me." So I sent him the screws, and he called me up, and he was like really mad at me. He's like, "Oh my God, I've been doing this for 35 years, and we've spent 35 years trying to develop tools and trying to hold these screws." And he goes, "I can't believe you thought of this. You're not even in this industry." And that's another thing, is that, most of good ideas aren't from the industry because
they get too close to it, right?
Exactly. They
Yeah.
think that's how they do it. So they figure that's the way to do it. And it took somebody like me from another industry to say, wait a minute, this is too hard. And so he loved it, and he was a big advocate for me, and he actually introduced me to an optical distributor who distributes optical parts. And
let me ask you one quick question. So you're still involved, you're 9 months in now to the provisional patent, is that correct, approximately?
Yes.
So you have to start thinking about your utility patent, right, but you don't have to quite yet.
Right.
Okay, so go ahead, sorry.
So he introduced me to his salespeople that he buys his product from, and he set up an appointment for me, and I went to Long Island, and the guy, and here's another thing, the guy that I met with was the president, and he had one of my kits in his drawers from the consumer market he had picked up, and he never thought that he could cross that consumer product over to the optical screw for these opticians. He just never did, because when I met with him, and he goes, "Oh my God, I've seen this," and he opened his drawer, and there was my kit in his drawer. For 2 years, that kit was in his drawer.
Wow.
Well, it wasn't quite 2 years, but it was like, it was probably around 2 years by the time I got to this point with him.
Wow. So then now you're starting to have to think about the things that are going to cost some money,
yes,
right?
Yes.
So that's where a lot of people hit that roadblock. So at what point, how do you go about, let's say this, how do you go about trying to make the least amount of mistakes at this point, because that's when it's going to cost money that will stop people from being able to move forward?
Well, hopefully it'll be by reading a book I write someday, but I mean, it's so hard to answer that question, because I would say that the feedback that you get from showing your product is the most essential part of the process, because if you know, you're going to know if you have a winner, and then that's when you have to decide, do you believe in this project enough to put your money into it? And if you don't have the money to put into it, that's another problem that people face all the time. They don't have the money to do it. But there are people that are out there that if they believe in your product, they'll invest in your product. And Lisa and I were talking about this before the show, is that a lot of people run into this problem that they find people out there that say, "Oh, well, we're experts and we'll show you how to do it. Give us whatever, $1,200 a month and we'll guide you, or give us, $10,000 and we'll get you a prototype." And I told Lisa that one of my favorite lines when I'm talking to people who don't know how to do this is, if they ask you for money up front, run. And people that are in this industry that are doing the wrong things hate it when they hear me say that, because whenever there's a middle person and they really don't, if they don't believe in your project enough to put their time and effort into it, then they don't believe in your project. And that's as simple as that. Because me now, I help inventors all the time and I don't charge, but if I came across an invention that I wanted to get really involved in, I would ask for a percent at the end when we made it successful and you were sitting on the shelves out there. And I think a lot of inventors get caught up with these direct TV companies that say they're going to make you a millionaire, or there's so many people out there that just prey on inventors because, like I said before, we all think that we have great inventions, and so when we think that way, we open ourselves up to people out there that will prey on us, because when we hear good things, we want them, we want to hear those good things, so we start to think maybe we should invest our money that way, and that's the least place you want to invest your money.
So let's talk about then, where do you invest your money? Because a utility patent, there's better attorneys than others too for that, because there's some that just really want to help bring these products to fruition, but also use their skill and use their profession and do it a lot. So some of them, I've talked with attorneys who will charge anything from, a base price from beginning to end to get it filed, and you know what you're up against, and that includes the back end of having to, because you're going to file a patent and then there's going to be questions and you're going to kind of have to argue that with the patent office, and that costs money. So what is a good thing? What's a red flag when dealing with that process of finding who you go to for the utility patent process?
Well, there's pretty much they are standard fees to file a patent. They're standard, they're the same. They vary a little bit by the number of claims you have and how many, pages your patent is, but not by much. But the first thing that I would do is find out how much they're going to charge you. I mean, if you sit down with an agent or an attorney, you have your product there, you know what it is, and so they should be able to give you a ballpark of what it's going to cost to file. For instance, my patent cost me to file about $3,000. And that covered all the fees associated with filing it, and my patent agent drawing up the claims and the drawings initiated in the patent application. And then, every time, like Lisa was saying, that you have to respond to the patent office, they're called office actions, and then they charge you, per office action. Mine were about, I'm going to say $350 to $400 every office action that I had. And I had quite a few because, a fastener is, it's not too often you can get a patent on a fastener in the year 2011. So
that hasn't already been done. That's the whole problem, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. So it was, I'm going to say that I was into my patent by all said and done by the time it was patented, maybe about $5,000.
Okay. So that's a good idea of what it can cost. So that $5,000, like you said, it doesn't have to necessarily come out of your savings or out of your checking account or out of your retirement fund. You can find angel investors too, and you can find people who want to take a percentage and all that sort of thing. And that can be found just as easily as everything else you're looking for, because there are people who have money who want to be a part of that type of business. So for you had your own ways of getting the money, so you didn't bring in any investors or anything, and you went forward with your idea.
Correct.
So during that patent process, while you're waiting, because it takes months, what are you doing to hustle your company, to hustle your product?
Years. I filed for mine in August of 2008, and I received my patent in December of 2011.
Yeah, so even just from them to respond the first time,
it's about almost 2 years.
Yes. Okay, so then you're in the process of that. So you don't recommend that people just sit and wait for the patent. You have to get out there and keep moving. So what were you doing during that hiatus, waiting for?
I was hustling. I was out there trying to market in every way I can, and I met with this optical distributor in Long Island, and they actually gave me quite a large sum of money up front to distribute my screws to the optical industry, not the consumer market, but just the opticians in this country.
Well, explain the difference between that. So you're not selling it to the end-use buyer. You're not selling it to me, who broke her glasses and it needs this kit. You're selling it to the optometrist that I go to.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
and they fix the glasses every day. They fix a lot of glasses, and so they went from taking 10 minutes to fix glasses to 30 seconds with my screw. So time is money, and
Sure.
anywhere. And so I ended up hooking up with the company is OptiSource International, and we launched my product in March of 2010 at Vision Expo at the Javits Center in New York City. And OptiSource sells about 500 different products, and at that first show, Snap It sold 2/3 of their total revenue for the trade show.
Wow.
So I knew that I had something special at the end of that trade show. And by the time September came around, there was Vision Expo West in Las Vegas, and Snap-it won the Award of Excellence from the Optical Laboratory Association, and that's when I knew that it was time for me to move to the consumer market, because I was in good hands with OptiSource in this country.
Let's take a quick break and we'll come back. We'll finish up and talking with Nancy Tedeschi and find out how she went from